And today is day 3. Step out there to your polling or registration center and check your name in the register, because this year's election is very crucial. Your vote will determine your future, and we can't take this for granted. As you know already, NDC's 2020 candidate has been in this region, Bono East, since Thursday. And this morning, as we do after his tour of each region, we are privileged to have a chat with him on his assessment, direct promises he has made, and how the people have been relating to him and other national issues. We are live from AJ Plaza Hotel. We'll take a short break. When we return, the show starts.
The average human body mass should have at least 60% water for optimal performance in any physical or mental exercise. We can help you maintain it.
You see, that doesn't mean the past, make them not look here. You should do what?
Natural mineral water. Simply natural.
I think most of the when we travel outside, we're able to say that America is different from Ghana simply because of the infrastructure we see. The good roads, the good hospitals, the good schools and all that. And so if an amount of 10 billion is going to be pushed into an infrastructure to elevate it to a point where we're going to have that solace, like those in America and all that, then I think it's a very good thing. So if we're going to get that, I know it's going to create jobs, it's going to open up the economy and all that. So it's a very great thing, and I feel very excited about that.
Why should he see that?
Pardon, sir?
Why should he stay there?
He's controlling the bag, what people are moving around. No, Francis.
Not a rough road.
Oh, come. You better chair, I say make you go inside.
That was a beautiful advert on infrastructure, and thanks for staying with us. And thank you, Power FM, Agro TV, Water One TV, Class FM, and Accra FM for hooking up with us. I invite you to call a friend to join us, and this conversation will be live on Wezo TV and at John Mahama, that's JD at Mahama, on Facebook and Twitter. Mr. President, good morning again, and it's a privilege to speak to you on TVXYZ and Wezo TV.
Thank you, Eric. Always good to be with you.
Yes, it's been an interesting tour. We have followed you around. We've heard a lot of the traditional authorities speak. We've heard the ordinary people show their love. And for you, we've been to other regions. Now, looking at how you entered the region and what happened through Techiman, that's Techiman South, Techiman North, ending up late last night. What is your assessment?
It's been a good tour, and it always is good to be on the ground and meet the ordinary people and interact with them, get to know what their concerns are. One of the things I noticed is our manifesto has been very well received, and it's because, like we said, it's a people's manifesto, and most of the ideas were generated from the people themselves. It took us almost a year meeting different groups. We went on a speak out tour, talking to traders, to mechanics, to Okada riders, to doctors, to lawyers, nurses, teachers, everybody. And they came up with their concerns. Of course, it's not everything we could include in the manifesto, but the key points are there, and so you can see that it has gone down very well.
Well, I have a copy of the manifesto. Obviously, this conversation will focus on some of the direct promises you've been making, commentaries by the various groups you've been meeting. But I want us to start this conversation on the voter register exhibition exercise, because of all the things the political parties and their leaders are doing, the ultimate is to encourage the people to go out there and vote. And if their names are not in the register, then you are losing out because they will follow you. For you, this exercise has started. What is your advice to the general public?
Wherever I've gone, I've been advocating and asking people to take a little time to go and check their names in the register. And I'm hopeful that they'll respond. And traditionally, the turnout for exhibition of the register is not as high as the registration itself. People, once they've registered, just assume that their name should be there. But it's important for them to go and check, because some of the reports we're receiving, show that significant numbers of names are missing. There are duplication of numbers and a lot of inaccuracies in the register. So it will be important for everybody to go and check. And so I'll continue that advocacy. We're waiting to receive proper reports from our elections directorate. They are monitoring and comparing the slips we received during registration with the current register being exhibited to see whether there's a pattern, to the missing names or what really the problem is. And so I'm sure that by tomorrow, our party should issue some statement on the exhibition so far.
Now, what I observed when we followed you around the constituencies here in Bono East, we noticed some of the voter register exhibition centers. There were hardly queues we saw along some of the routes we plied. And we have also heard reports that, as you said, some of the registers don't have a lot of names. There is a case, we are told, out of 400 people who are supposed to be on the list, only 5. For you, how do you respond to this? And especially going forward, and especially, let me emphasize on the word especially, the reaction of the general public towards this exercise?
Yeah, as I said, traditionally the turnout for voter exhibition of the register is much lower than the registration itself, and so it won't be unusual. But I do think that it is important for people to come out and check their names. But aside from that, the political parties are also present at the exhibition centers. And so, like I said, what we're going to do is we're going to make a comparison of the people that were registered, because our party agents were there when the registration was taking place. And aside from the slips that the Electoral Commission gave us at the end of every day of registration, our agents were trained to jot down the names and count the numbers of people who registered. And so it's easy for us to check, our records against the EC's records and see whether there is a discrepancy there. With regards to the missing names and duplication of numbers, it's still rumors that we're all hearing. I've been going on the social media and hearing reports about missing names in one area or the other, duplicate numbers and all that. But I cannot speak exactly to it unless we get a confirmed report from our elections directorate. And currently they are doing that compilation. And I'm sure that by tomorrow, our party should be able to say something definitive on the exhibition of the register.
Now let's look at the tour itself. It's a 3-day tour. You started on Thursday from Atebubu, Amanting, and I remember on that day we traveled as far as KJG through the Kwame Danso Road, and then you've been to a number of areas. Yesterday we spent the whole day in Techiman. We were in Techiman North, Techiman South. I want us to begin the conversation with day one. What is your assessment through till last night?
Like I said, it was a very good tour. We drove from Kumasi and went straight to the end, of the Sene East District, which is Kajeji, just a short distance from Kojokrom, where the ferry landing site is. And I mean, definitely for that day, the most significant thing was the road. I'm sure you yourself experienced it.
There were no potholes.
That is the Atebubu Kojokrom Road through Kwame Danso. That's a very important road. I remember I commissioned the ferry service, the pontoon, from Ketekrachi to Kojokrom. And we commissioned it at the Ketekrachi side. And so after we finished the commissioning ceremony, we drove onto the pontoon and we were ferried across to Kojokrom because we were going to drive through there, through Atebubu to Kumasi. And the road was so bad at the time. I was vice president. And so we promised the people that we were going to work on it. And so when I got the opportunity and became president, I immediately, when I launched the Cocoa Roads program, I immediately put that road on the list. And so just small construction started from Kwame Danso to Kojokrom. At the time, Ghanem was working from Atebubu to Kwame Danso. And so we realized that the rate at which the Atebubu to Kwame Danso contract was going was very slow. And so we moved the contractor onto another project, and then we gave that project to Jasmall to continue. And so you notice that half the road is virtually done.
Okay.
And he had just started on this other side when we left office. And the road has been abandoned since then till now. It's in a very poor state. Now, and here the president himself went along that road.
Yes, we understand Jasmall is still on that project.
Jasmall was the one on the project. They stopped him for 4 years, abandoned the road, and now they've asked him to go and continue. The president went and cut sod as if it was a new project. It is that same project that he abandoned 4 years ago. The road has deteriorated, and now they've gone to cut sod to ask the same contractor to go back and continue. I mean, it's just a waste. He had done parts of the road, and you know, over time it's been eroded and washed away, and so it's going to cost more money now to do that same road than it would have cost if he had continued.
As we followed you, we realized that many of the chiefs really poured out their frustration. Some made fresh promises. Others endorsed you because they assumed from the conversation I monitored that the track record was enough for them to conclude that they could trust you. Now, even as we moved along, some installed you in Koswohini or somebody, I can't remember the exact names, but it suggested that they were endorsing the confidence they had reposed in you. One issue that cut across was abandoned projects. They could be schools, road projects, hospitals, and so on. For you, as a candidate going into a fresh election and looking at the tall list of abandoned projects and fresh ones that are coming in, how can you assure, or what assurance do you have for the public that indeed you will live by your word?
Eric, maybe I need to appoint you as my registrar of chieftaincy titles. I've received so many of them, I probably have lost track, but I mean, it's just an honor, and it shows you the confidence that the chiefs and people repose in a person based on the track record that you have had.
So that's one of the locations where you were installed as a chief, and you go ahead with your conversation.
This is Apesika. Yeah, it was in the 9th.
That's Nana Abebu.
Yes, and I mean, it's just an honor that they give you because they appreciate what you did for them. In that particular area, it's under Abease traditional area, and in that particular area, we brought electricity to them. They were in darkness for all these decades. We brought electricity to them. We built them a new school, a community day secondary school. We brought them telecommunication service. They couldn't call anywhere, you know, with their mobile phones because there was no service. And we brought communication services there. And then we're working on their road. We did half of it and we left office and the rest was abandoned. But I mean, it was a theme that ran through. It was either roads, clinics, you know, water systems, electricity, schools. It is the common story across the whole country that with the advent of the new government, I mean, work came to a standstill on all their developmental projects. And they lament a lot about it. And I agree with them that it is a waste of our taxpayers' money. And it's become the story of the Nana Akufo-Addo administration. Because as soon as they came into office, they directed a suspension of contracts because they were going to audit the projects. And I wonder why they would have done that. A very effective government would have audited the projects even as the contractors were working. But when you ask people to come to a sudden halt, it's very difficult for you to get them to restart the projects. And so it's a litany all over the country. There are projects that were being carried out, you know, during our administration.
I remember in one of the conversations we had with you, you assured Ghanaians that one of the priorities you have as a person or president, if you win, is to ensure that all abandoned projects are taken care of within the first year, and then you move on subsequently. What I want us to do at this stage is to listen to one of the chiefs who actually shared the concerns we're talking about. From there, we can move into the specifics and then link it to the big push and how you want to address some of these challenges.
Sabre ya fofia ntuata wakotena nchen a wo san pekwan ababienum enim se oba obeye aye no mruso de eda nanu makoma so kentampo ha ba ko ne kentampo akwan kentampo mbonten so akwan enim se na eda wakoma so se nka obeye enso ebre amakwan enti yade tu anim se nyame wadom na wasan ba wadwene ho asiesie kentampo akwan nyina mayen your excellency ebio na wo aban mo no wo ye mpuntudwuma bebre wo kentampo ebi ne kentampo dwadada unam former MC so Justice Michael Bafoso esiesie edwadada no ma kentampo e ma ne ye fe o kontan crew station a why ho kama enam wo MC so ni nyina mo no wanya school sam so kentampo senior high school ye bebre wo ho wasa ku crew daka kraka ediasi new longro yada wasenya menshirawo na wonye okese Sabre adia afa na nso twe wadi nipa aka shi ha nyina na bibi kyerese ho kom de kentampofo ho kom de Ghana man nyina Ghana man de supreme se obo abedi en afri sebe nkasumu yemo akaba no kwadi ko nyina ebe toya na wase ma wo ye nhihia se nyame ye wadom na wasa baba mu bi mu a wodi na ye aduma no wanja kentampo mu wodi na kentampo ho wodi ye che wo nhihia mu se nyame ye wadom na wasa baba mu bi mu a yeka eye ukwebe da kentampo main market obesi ese da no aye de se kegechi a okuma se a dudu no atude se kegechi a Dubai
have been laid bare, and this was late into the night, I think about 2 days ago, way after midnight. But the list is tall: roads, expansion, water supply, refurbishment of facilities in education, health institutions, upgrading of health centers. Mr. President, you are a former president, always a president. Your Excellency, how do you link this to the $10 billion big push initiative and meet the demands that you are coming across on daily basis as you move around the country?
That's exactly the point. You know, over the years, we have handled our infrastructure in a drip fashion. A little clinic here, a little school block here, you know, a little work on some road here, and so on and so forth. And it's not able to push our social and economic infrastructure to the stage where it is able to accelerate the economy and allow us to take off. And so we believe that a 10 billion investment, you know, in social and economic infrastructure will give the kind of stimulus and bring our social and economic infrastructure to the stage where the economy really can benefit and be able to help us move to the next level as a full middle income country. We'll apply some of this money from the big push. We're estimating about $2 billion every year. We'll apply some of this money to take care of the expansion of small town water systems, to take care of polyclinics, district hospitals, to take care of providing schools and fixing the roads in a lot of these areas. Because if you fix the roads in these areas, you make it possible for them to transport the agricultural products easily from the farm gates to the market. And that in itself will give a boost to the economy. And so the big push will give us that push, literally, you know, to be able to move the economy forward. Now, the good thing about it is, as I stated in the manifesto, you must be a Ghanaian registered company paying taxes in Ghana to be able to participate in any of the projects under the big push. Because we want that $10 billion to remain in this country and to be invested in this country. And so any company that wants to undertake any project, be it a hospital, a school, be it a road, must be a company that is registered in Ghana and paying taxes in Ghana. This will stimulate the Ghanaian economy, and it will make the economy accelerate.
Now, I've heard your opponents begin to introduce the word credibility, and they want to create the impression that while the manifesto is people's manifesto and reflects the expectations of people you engaged, you don't have the credibility because of your track record, and therefore Ghanaians cannot believe in what you have promised. How do you respond to this?
Well, what else do you expect my opponent to say? That I have the credibility? Ghanaians know what my track record is. And I'm talking about social and economic infrastructure. And if it comes to social and economic infrastructure, my opponent comes nowhere near me in terms of my track record. I built schools, I built hospitals, I repaired the roads, electricity, water. We built a new expanded Tema port, investment of over $1 billion. We built the new Terminal 3, University of Ghana Medical Center, you know, water supply to many communities, extended electricity to so many communities across the country. I mean, countless things that we did when it comes to infrastructure. And so when we talk about credibility, you know, I mean, who is more credible when it comes to delivering infrastructure as we have promised? I mean, certainly our record is far better than his. I mean, you should show me one secondary school he's built, or show me one hospital that he's built in 4 years, you know, or, I mean, how many communities he has extended electricity to. And, I mean, it's easy to see that we have a better and more credible track record.
So, speaking to His Excellency John Mahama, former president and NDC's 2020 candidate. This live on Wezo TV, on Facebook and YouTube, the former president's social media handles. And of course, also on Class FM, Power FM, Vota One TV, Ago TV. The list is tall. I want us to listen to the Techuman Hene, because some of the concerns you raised relate to the issues about track record, promises, and what any political party should deliver if it wins the 2020 elections.
We can win, we can win. Enti mesra no say o manage leader follower relationship no o manage ni ye pa say wa manage ni ye na say expectations no ne demands no ne wo hwe e de akan we ya wo be wie no na ye te say be conference or higher way, what to approve no nyina wanja window bi amfa to ho no mo se jakura to ma wini baby a o fa apie gidi se asma me kan so tie ne asopam na kana ne ye we nyeba bedi wachi ye chobo no nyina ne bedi akoma pa edi akire the one manage leader follower relationship no ya na akwa di populist sentiments bi achi na wakwa kan bibi ya hunu bida Ghana hanum ya mofra revolution ba ma manfo ye chobo isa edru ba bi no na revolution no end enso so bia aka ni twoboi ne wokan no e de asie ne bede ne nyina akoto former president Rawlings so ya me boa mu nyina mu nim enti manhwia nkura nim, but also objective no should be the national interest. The sole objective no should be the national interest. Which a partisan and individual tribal demands expectations no one managing a pair. Ubebi no na wa confine one to a corner bia chese untimi nya ayibia to extricate yourself from the situation.
So that was the Techiman Traditional Council. I know many of the traditional authorities seem to be advising you going forward. I don't know whether they have concluded that you are winning the 2020 elections. Now, when you hear such advice or commentary, what goes through your mind?
You take it in good faith. I mean, these are traditional rulers who have acquired years of experience of leadership. And so when they give advice, I listen carefully and I take it in good faith. And I think that a lot of the advice they give is good. I mean, he was talking about leadership and not being populist and not managing expectations of people. I think that that's one of the problems Nana Akufo-Addo faced. I mean, he raised expectations so high, but was very low on delivery. And so you can see that people feel very disappointed in his administration. And that has a correlation to a reduction in their faith in our whole democratic journey. And so you hear a lot of people say, look, this democracy is not working for them, the economy is not working for them, and so they don't even know why they should bother to vote. It is as a result of the very high expectations he raised and a very short delivery that has happened, and that's what's creating, and that's exactly what the chief was talking about.
Now, so this conversation is actually looking at the former president's assessment of his tour of the Bono East region and going through Sene East and West constituencies, Pru East, Pru West, and yesterday were in Techiman, Kintampo areas. Now, the predominant activity of the people here is farming. Now, I want us to look at the plans for the agric sector. I've been going through much of it in this manifesto. Can you share with us, in this area, maize, groundnut, yam, cashew, pepper is predominant. That's really what they produce to feed this country.
Yes. I'll talk about two important initiatives in the agric sector. You saw it yourself. I mean, Bono East is one of the food baskets of Ghana. As you said, maize, beans, groundnuts, cassava, yam, everything, you know, is produced here. There are two important initiatives that we're coming up with. The first is the crop processing zones. What we're doing is we're mapping out this country and looking at what the predominant agricultural activity is in the various parts of the country. And we're going to put in agro-processing capacity so that we're able to convert the raw crops into something that is preserved and be able to be marketed properly. And so, for instance, take Bono East. They produce a lot of cashew. Bono East and Bono, this is where you have the bulk of cashew production. And so we're going to put in processing capacity to be able to buy all the cashew of the farmers and then be able to process it both for internal consumption and for export. Yesterday, I was at Auroa and Krobo. They produce a lot of pepper, and pepper is an exportable item. If we put in a processing plant to process their pepper, we can sell some on the Ghanaian market, and we can export some to get foreign exchange to come in. We also inspected a very interesting project put up by the current MP for Kintampo North. He, using an export development and agricultural investment fund, you know, a facility, put up a cassava flour processing plant, and he invited me to commission it. He produces about 25 tons a day. Meanwhile, he has an order from the breweries to supply 45 tons a day. So he cannot even meet his demand. And he's employed 50 people, permanent employees. Aside from that, it's creating jobs in the value chain because all the farmers he's buying the cassava from, you know, have an assured market, you know, for their cassava. That is the kind of progress that will make this country move forward. And that is the plan that we have. We're not going to shout empty things like one district, one factory, one district, one factory. Because the agricultural value chains do not follow political delineations. I mean, if you talk about cashew, it's not in only one district. So you cannot say one district, one factory. But you can have processing capacity to absorb all the cashew production. You can have processing capacity to absorb all the pepper production in an area. You can have processing capacity to buy the cassava in a certain area. And so ours are going to be crop processing zones. And we're going to put in agro-processing facilities to be able to do that. What we want to do is to encourage agribusiness. And I think that a lot of young people can become entrepreneurs, you know, if we encourage them to go into agribusiness. And that's why I say we're going to change the name of the Ministry of Agriculture into the Ministry of Agriculture and Agribusiness. Because agribusiness is the missing link in our agricultural value chain. Anytime we focus on increasing production, so we give the farmers more fertilizer, we give them improved seeds, we give them all they need to improve production. But we don't put the missing link in where their produce will be bought and processed into something that is useful to the market. And that has been the missing link that we're going to put in. So that's the first initiative. The second initiative is the farmer service centers. These are essentially mechanization centers. And what we're going to do is, in all the agricultural zones of this country, we're going to put mechanization centers where we have tractors, we have plows, we have harrows, we have planters, we have boom sprayers, everything a farmer needs for modern agriculture, we're going to have in these centers. Now, what the farmer has to do is, the farmers must go and register as members of the center. Once you're a registered member of the center, you will be given an ID card. And during the farming season, if it's plowing, if it's harrowing, if it's planting, if it's spraying your farm, you go to the center, they'll provide you with the service, either in cash or on credit. If you don't have money, it doesn't matter. They'll provide the service.
Is it going to be similar to the block farm project that was initiated under the your previous regime?
No, the block farm project is something different. The block farm project, what they do is they take a big piece of land, like 200 acres, and then they plow the whole land, they harrow it, and then they plant the land, but then they cut it into blocks for various farmers. And so the farmers are responsible for their own blocks. At the end of it, when it's harvested, everybody harvests. So
this one is speaking specifically to individual farmers and what they can benefit from under this mechanized or farming
exactly
you're talking about.
I mean, the farmers have their individual farms scattered wherever within the district. But then they go and register at the mechanization center as members. And so it becomes like a kind of cooperative. And the center provides service to the farmers. And then at the end of the farming season, if the farmer wants to sell his crop to the center will buy the crops and market it. If he wants to sell his crops himself, he's free to do so. And then he'll take a little money and go and pay the cost of the services that he was given. That's the concept behind it.
Okay.
But it is just meant to modernize agriculture, because our young people don't want to go into the back-breaking hoe and cutlass agriculture that our fathers used to do. It will be more attractive to them if it is modernized agriculture, you know, it's mechanized agriculture. And so we're going to recruit a lot of young people to participate in this program. We're going to collaborate with the chiefs so that the chiefs release land so that young people who want to go into agriculture, you know, can be assisted to do so.
So this is an interview on TVXYZ, Wazor TV, on Facebook, YouTube, the former president's social media handles, and of course on several radio stations I've mentioned earlier. And this is live from Techiman. We are at AJ Plaza Hotel, and I want us to listen to the former president when he spoke to issues about cashew development. You know, cashew is one of the cash crops that is close to cocoa. Let's listen to him.
Cashew na cashew no wosha ye beto cashew no ha ebi 300 Ghana cedis and 400 Ghana cedis na cashew no omo de ko na omo ko hwane ho na omo siese 400 no omo de be ko akoto no amano ne eno benya by 2,000 cedis. I just say, if I saw a washing in I just say, Omoto and the Kono and the Inya. And in the Eka, say, Yasha say, Bono East and a Bono and a day Akotenepa and Cashew, a Jumanu. And also, Yabete, near friend the Cashew Development Board. Send a bear, Yasha send a cocoa board, cocoa if you are for so. Sana sa cashew board so ebehwe cashew ejumayefo no ekwiafo no in these two regions, including Ahafo and parts of northern region, that is the cashew belt. And people have hundreds and hundreds of acres of cashew. And so if we look after it, it can be a second important cash crop for this economy. So we want to set up a cashew development board. It will assist the cashew farmers in their care of their cashew plantations using modern practices so that we can get high quality cashew nuts. It will also assist the farmers in terms of extension services and so on and so forth, giving them the kinds of inputs they need to be able to grow their cashew properly. And then it will be responsible for buying the cashew of the farmers at a price that is guaranteed, so that the cashew farmer knows that, you know, he's going to get this price at the end of the day. It will encourage them to produce more of the cashew and pick more of the cashew. But most importantly, putting in the processing capacity to process it here. You know what has been happening? We have the Asian buyers who come during the cashew season with CDs, and they come and buy all the cashew nuts. They take it to the ports, they export it to Asia, and then they go and process it in Asia, and then they package it and then export it to America and collect dollars. And so the dollars go back to their country. They bring a little of it here, change into CDs again, and then buy the cashew. Now we want to stop that. We want to process that cashew here and export it directly to Europe and America and other places where they eat cashew, so that the benefits goes to our farmers locally. That's the
okay
idea.
So this is again TVXYZ Wizard TV. Just join us on this conversation. I've already seen lots and lots of text messages. I'll spend time to read a lot as they come in, and we'll be taking a short break. When we come back, those who are just joining us, the number is 020-866 7000, 020-866 7000. Just relax, key in some words, send them to us, and then we'll read them as part of this conversation. And this is part of what we do when we follow the former president on his tour after he wraps up the tour of each region. We'll be back after this short break.
The average human body mass should have at least 60% water.
And this is TVXYZ, Wezo TV on TV, on Facebook and YouTube. I want to read a few text messages, and this one from a gentleman says, no single customer of the defunct fund management companies have been paid. We are over 100,000 customers. Please tell JDM to still stress on the payment of locked up funds come January 2020. I'll be picking the text messages at random. This one says, please, John Mahama did well, so people should vote for him and Ghana will be blessed in Jesus' name. It didn't come with a name. This text message says, my name is Tensi from Teple in the South Tong district of Sogakopa. Please tell JM that the MP here is fading the party. Honorable Mensa Woyome. He's just, well, I won't read the other word. In fact, I'm just picking the text messages at random. There's a press release somebody has sent to me. It says, reaction to claims John Mahama on teacher licensure exams. Now, it looks like a lot of people are expecting that you go ahead to emphasize on your pledge to cancel it. And so that's in the statement. I can't read the statement because of time. Good morning, sir. Please, kindly tell His Excellency KDM to tell, that's JDM, to tell all community leaders that on 7 December, all ASAFO groups should prepare themselves to chase out all invisible forces, and the message goes on. And this from Jafet Azim from Jasikan in the OT region. I'll read one more. Good morning, sir. I am watching you live from Sydney, Australia. God bless you. It didn't come with a name. I want us to talk about primary health care. When we follow you, Wezo TV and then TVXYZ team, we try to listen to ordinary people among those who join the mini debates. And it seems a lot of them are still interested in full details about the free primary health care. And we got the impression that many of them don't have the NHIS card.
Yeah, maybe just before I answer that, just quickly, I promise that we'll pay in full all people who had lost monies as a result of the closure of the financial institutions. And in reaction to that, government has pledged to pay in full and in cash. And I think that recently they announced that some money had been released to make those payments. And so it's a good thing that those payments are taking place. But when we come into office, anybody who has not been paid will go ahead and pay them their monies. With regards to teacher licensure exams, it was us who introduced licensing of teachers. But the intention was not to use exams for the licensing, because they would have done their final year exams from colleges of education. And so when they come out again, it's really unnecessary to subject them to writing another exam. If we improve the quality of their final exam, then you can be sure that everybody who comes out is qualified to be able to teach. And so the licensing was going to be by an interview process, some other process other than exams. But then we left office before we could implement it. So when this government came, they decided to use an exam to do it. And so in our manifesto, we said when we come, we will stop the exam as a means of licensing teachers. And this government has announced that they've suspended the exam. And so it means that we are on the same wavelength, and I don't think there's any problem there. But free primary health care. National health insurance was introduced in 2003. At the time, it was a mutual health insurance scheme. Now, what a mutual health insurance scheme means is that it was a scheme of members. And so if you were in a certain district, like let's say the Bole district, you registered with your mutual health insurance provider. It means that they were in individual silos. And so if you were a member of the Bole Mutual Health Insurance Scheme and you traveled to Damango, you could not access service there. That was how it was structured under President Kufuor. It was President Mills who came and turned it into a national health insurance. And that meant that it was one scheme covering the whole country. And so if you were registered anywhere in the country, you could access health services anywhere in the country. That was in 2010, thereabouts.
So that saw an improvement from the mutual health to the national health.
To the national health insurance that we have today. And so that was in 2010. Now, the health scheme has been on since 2003. Would it surprise you to know that it covers only 40% of our population?
40.
Only 40% of our population are subscribers to the National Health Insurance Scheme and get service.
But it's supposed to be a one-term registration, and then you continue to renew it.
Yes. But so far, in the years that scheme has existed, it covers only 40% of our population.
So how significant is the free primary health care with reference to the 40% under NHIS?
I'm going to explain that to you. Every country objective is to achieve universal health for all. It means you must cover the bulk of your population in terms of access to quality health care. Now, it's obvious that almost 17 years after we introduced the National Health Insurance Scheme, it's not going to be able to cover the majority of our population. And so we need a new vehicle that will expand access to health service, and that is free primary health care. In 2016, I commissioned a review of the National Health Insurance Scheme, and the report was presented to me, I think, in about September or October of 2016. And we brought experts, you know, on health delivery from all over the world. They were led by one of our own, Chris Atim, who has become a very important focal person when it comes to health insurance and healthcare. And the report came out with a recommendation to introduce a component of free healthcare if we're going to expand health service to the bulk of our population. And that is why we have it in our manifesto today, that will introduce free primary healthcare, so that we can push the coverage of our people who have access to healthcare to above 80 to 90%. And the only way we can do this is to create free healthcare at the basic health level for the basic diseases. And so malaria, typhoid, cholera, and all those sicknesses, you know, and antenatal services at the CHIPS compounds, at the health centers, at the polyclinics, all the way up to the district hospitals should be free of charge. And we should be able to provide the health deliverers, you know, the money in advance to be able to provide the care to the patients. And so it's all in the manifesto. We have it carefully planned, and we will implement it so that we can push up access to health delivery amongst our people to a much higher percentage than 40%.
Well, this gives me a better understanding, because I've also been struggling to appreciate what really free primary health care is. And when I made a careful appreciation of the figures you quoted, 40%, and related it to the fact that there are times when you hear MPs or philanthropists saying we are taking care of the payment for people to be brought onto the NHIS, it gives a general appreciation of the fact that many people cannot even go and register for the first time to be part of the process.
The free primary health care must also come with expansion of infrastructure. Because, I mean, if a person does not have a CHIPS compound or a health center in his community, how is he going to be able to access healthcare? And so under the big push, we are going to provide more CHIPS compounds, more health centers, more polyclinics, more district hospitals, so that we improve access, so that our people can go and access healthcare.
Now, this brings to mind Johnson Asedun Ketia. He's been very vocal throughout your tour. Last night, for example, he took a swipe at the former, that's the current administration, suggesting that, look, government is saying free water, free electricity on their campaign tours. And then he was telling the people that if you don't have water in your home, if you don't have electricity in your community, government can announce free, but you may not have access. And he's been speaking a lot on several issues. You went around with him. How do you take into consideration some of the key things he has also been sharing with the people?
Well, a lot of the things that our General Secretary has been sharing, you know, on this tour from the manifesto that we launched. He has a very good way of breaking things down, you know, to the lowest denominator so that people understand. And of course, he has a flair with the tree language, much better,
proverbs,
much better than I have. And okay. I mean, he has all the proverbs at his fingertips. And so, I mean, he's been an asset on this tour. I mean, sometimes when he speaks, I don't find it necessary to speak again, because he would have broken it down so vividly that the people understand exactly what he's saying. And so that thing he was talking about was, I mean, you can be given everything free, but if you don't have access to the thing, then it's really useless. If you say we're giving you free water, but you have no water in your community, then you cannot enjoy that benefit. And so it's the same if you relate it to free primary healthcare. And that's why I said that free primary healthcare must come with a big push to expand health infrastructure, so that all our people are within a certain number of, not longer than a certain number of kilometers from a health facility. and that's what we will try to.
Now, I want us to talk about the Zongos because the scenes at one of the communities we visited here in Techiman, I think Techiman North, was quite exciting. I will go ahead, but this text message has dropped about 5 times. Let me read it. It says, "Good morning, host. We, the boat owners and fishermen along the Volta Lake, wish to express our profound gratitude to His Excellency John Mahama for identifying our major problem relating to premixed fuel. You made this known during your visit to Yeji a few days ago. We are happy and ready to vote for you massively," blah, blah, blah. It goes on and says, "Come and rescue us from fishermen," and it goes on. "We trust you," says John Pelly, Secretary, Fisherman and Boat Owners Association.
Yeah.
Now, these cut across. Because of time, I want us to limit this conversation because you have announced what you are going to do, and I don't want us to spend much time because the message has dropped severally. That's why I wanted to acknowledge it.
But I think it's important.
Okay, so you can go ahead.
Let me just
give
explain
you,
a little. You know, Professor Tamils, and that's why they call him, they gave him a title. It means Chief Fisherman, you know, and when I became president, that title was transferred to me because he actually traveled to all the fishing communities in the country when he was a candidate along the seashore, and then also he went to the inland fishing communities. And one of the major concerns they had was the distribution of premixed fuel. They said they were not getting the premixed fuel. You know, government subsidizes it by 50%. Now, agents were getting it, and then they were putting their profit on it and selling it to the fishermen. So Professor Mills did something interesting. He came up with a suggestion and said that, look, when he becomes president, he's going to form landing beach committees, that's what they call them, in all the fishing communities. And truly, when he became president, they formed landing beach communities. It has the chief fisherman, and then all the fishermen and canoe owners as members. And then they were designated to receive the premix.
The product.
Yeah, the product. And then they distributed it to their members. This thing worked perfectly, and the complaints about, you know, no premix and diversion of premix was completely killed. Now, when this new administration came, they dissolved all the landing beach committees. And then what they did was they took their party functionaries and identified them to receive the product. So now the product goes to the party functionaries in the fishing community, and then they put their commission on top and sell it to the fishermen. And that is what the fishermen are upset about. In the previous arrangement, when the landing beach committee sells the premix, there's a small markup on it. They put it in a fund, and they use it for development in the fishing community. Some have built toilets, some have built landing sites, some have built sheds, you know, where they can mend their nets and so on and so forth. Now what happens is, when it goes to the MPP functionaries in the fishing community, they put their interest on top, and then the money is used to develop the party, to finance the political party. That is what these people are complaining about. And so when we come, we're going to revert it.
Okay.
You know, and we'll reconstitute the landing beach committees made up of the fishermen themselves. What they do is they do an election. They go, they select their own members, and then they present it, and then they receive the premixed product. And so all is not well in the fishing communities. If President Akufo-Addo is listening, you know, he should ask his Minister of Fisheries, you know, what exactly is happening in those fishing communities.
Yesterday, we were in one of the communities, specifically the Zongo communities. The NDC General Secretary made reference to a number of issues, and I could see the enthusiasm among the youth. We saw Okada riders, those who use what I think is called, is it Mahama Kambu, the Aboboyas, all kinds of names. They came in their numbers and followed you throughout the campaign within Techiman South and Techiman North. Now, the Zongo community, this current administration talks about Zongo ministry. Your manifesto makes specific reference to Zongo areas and what you intend to do. Why would people in the Zongos, why should they trust, or what really do you have to share with them, specifically with reference to where I've made specific mention of?
Actually, we call it Zongos and deprived urban communities. That is our description. I think the MPP calls it Zongo and inner city or something. We say Zongo and deprived urban communities, because it's not only the Zongos that are deprived, there are other communities.
And it is in this manifesto.
Yeah, it is. Let me borrow your. It's on page 82, I think. Page 82. Yeah, page 82. Zongos and deprived urban settlements. That is our name for it. And it has a lot of, programs here. It says, enroll youth in Zongo and deprived urban settlements into the National Apprenticeship Program. There's a program where we're going to pay apprenticeship fees so that young people who want to learn a trade will be attached to master craftsmen. And so we're going to target Zongo and deprived urban communities with this particular project. It says, establish plastic recycling factories in Zongos and deprived urban communities so that we can create jobs for people in those areas. It says, set up a Zongo fund, microcredit fund, for Zongo and deprived urban communities, which will be called the Soyeya Fund. Soyeya in Hausa language means love.
Soyeya?
Soyeya, it means love.
Okay.
So it's like a love fund. And so it will be used to give small microcredits to women traders, women in these deprived urban communities. It says, support Islamic colleges of education with more infrastructure. In our time, we absorbed the Al Farouk Islamic College of Education into the public system. It's in Wenchi, and it is supposed to train Arabic instructors and stuff like that, people who teach religious and moral education. And so we will provide more infrastructure so that it's able to deliver on that. It also goes on to say, work with the Hajj board to make Hajj more affordable to prospective pilgrims. You know the changes I made to the Hajj when I was vice president to make it more comfortable for them.
I remember there was a new Hajj village which is supposed to be existing around the airport area.
Yes. And so those were the improvements we brought. And so we'll continue to improve it. It says, ensure that there's a representative from the Muslim Ummah on the board of the Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs. The board of the ministry, currently as constituted, does not have a single Muslim religious leader on it. And so we say we'll make sure that when the board is reconstituted under us, they will be represented on that board. There's so many.
Okay. So
work with district assemblies to provide recreational centers in Zongo communities for social events. You know, often when there's Ameria, or Ameria means wedding, there are no places because of the very congested nature of the Zongos and other deprived urban settlements. There are no places where they can have their social events and recreational facilities. So we'll identify areas where we can create a good environment so that when they have weddings, they have other things, they can use those areas. Indeed, I mean, it's a whole page
well, I believe
and a half.
But is this manifesto online, just for emphasis?
Yes, it's online.
Okay.
And so people can access it
All
online.
right. So as the former president, let me take it from you, because at the end of the day, I have to take this copy. And
This one is interesting. It says, facilitate the establishment of morgue or mortuary. Mortuary. You know, there's been a long-standing complaint about how their bodies are handled, and then also by Islamic practice, within a certain number of hours, I think it's 48 hours, they must bury the person. But often with our traditional hospitals, it takes quite some time for them to get the body ready and so on and so forth. And so a lot of the Muslim communities have not been happy. And so we say facilitate the establishment of mortuaries in accordance with Islamic custom and practices, and collaborate with the Ministry of Health to set up focal teams responsible for procedures that are compliant with Islamic custom and practice at all public mortuaries.
Yes.
So this is a very important thing that they have been talking about. Then it also has support Arabic teachers in Makaranta with monthly allowances.
That's exactly what I wanted to refer to when I was asking for a copy of the book. I have it, but you have made reference to it.
Yes.
Now, I remember 2016 when we followed you to this particular region, and you made reference to the facility, I think around Wenchi.
Yeah.
You talked about Arabic teachers, you talked about setting up such facilities to encourage them.
Yeah.
Can you give us a bit more explanation into that particular point you just talked about?
You know, we set up the English Arabic schools in order that we can entice more of the Muslim youth to get a secular education. And we have these Arabic scholars. They call them malams. Malam means teacher, really, in the language. But of course, because of all the dubious people who call themselves malams, it has got a negative connotation. But otherwise, it means teacher.
Okay.
And so these people instruct the children in learning Arabic and also learning the Quran, you know. And so we'll give them a little remuneration so that they're able to do that. That will attract. It will give confidence to the parents in the Muslim communities that even if they send their children to school, their children are not going to be...
How significant is the language to the people within that bracket?
Well, Arabic has become a very important language in the world. And if you can speak Arabic, I mean, it's an advantage. It's like Chinese, it's like French, it's like Spanish. You know, if you can speak a second international language, it gives you an advantage. And so giving the children an early start and giving them some foundation in Arabic will be a good thing. When I was president, I pressed so that West African Exams Council included Arabic as a language that was examinable. And so if the children get a good foundation, and then we train more Arabic teachers at the College of Education and we post them into the Ghana Education Service, some children can take Arabic as a subject, you know, in senior high school and take an exam in it and be able to pass. And so that's the intention behind that. And so we'll give little allowances to these Arabic teachers who teach in those places. Then we also are going to support award scholarships to brilliant but needy students in Zongo and deprived urban communities at the basic to tertiary level, with special focus on girls in medicine and nursing.
You've made mention of this before. It became a subject of national discourse when I think the vice president suggested that they had sent some nurses to Cuba.
Yeah.
And the conversation I heard from the NDC in reaction was that it's been done before.
Yeah.
How different is it from what you are referring to?
Yeah, we got some scholarships from the Cuban government to send 200 young people to train in medicine and other paramedical, you know, courses. And so one of the things we noticed was that a lot of our doctors who were trained locally were not accepting postings to certain areas. And especially, you notice that the deprived communities, you know, and some of them had a low doctor-to-patient ratio. And so at the time I was vice president, and so Professor Mills directed that we should target children from these deprived communities and where they have low doctor-to-patient ratio, so that when the children come back, we can post them back to their communities. And so we targeted the Zongos, we targeted parts of the Upper West, Upper East, and places where a lot of doctors don't accept postings to. And we sent those children to Cuba for training. They came back last year. They're currently doing their housemanship. And out of the 200, 67 of them came from Zongo and Muslim communities. And then out of the 67, about 26 or 27 of them were Muslim girls. You know, it was just to encourage them so that they could come back and go and serve within their communities. We particularly, you know, asked that a lot of them should specialize in gynecology, you know, once they finish their housemanship, you know, to specialize in gynecology, because a lot of the Muslim mothers were uncomfortable having males, you know, to take care of them. Yeah. So if we created more doctors from these communities who were gynecologists, then they'll be able to take care of their mothers and their sisters and others.
So this is live on TVXYZ, Wazor TV, on Facebook, on YouTube, the former president's social media handles. And I have a copy of the NDC manifesto, page 82 is actually the one that refers to promises under Zongos and deprived urban settlements. If you live in any of such communities, you can just grab a copy and read the details for yourself. I want to read a few more text messages, and then when we come back, I want us to move on to other aspects of this conversation with the former president. He's been on a 3-day tour of the Bono East region, and very soon we'll be wrapping up on this conversation. It's live on Class FM, Power FM, Volta One TV, several other social media platforms. This message says, I'm Francis Goodman from Gomoa West. As for infrastructure, JM is in a comfortable lead. The NDC will win the December polls. The other one says, I'm Francis. Okay, the message was repeated. A lot of people are sending the messages again because they want them read. Please also allow prisoners to cultivate crops. Divide it into 3. 1 for the nation, 1 for sale and export, and one for sale and the other one for export. This is because of the feeding program for schools, the prisoners, and the nation as a whole. This one came from a policeman who says, this man came from Kwabena Srebwo in Cape Coast. The other message here is very long. I'll read the latter part because I've told you if you can keep it short, that will help many people. Okay.
The prisons is here. It says, it's on page 119. It says, commence a program to establish open camp prisons to undertake large-scale agricultural activities. On page 119.
So that has been captured. Well, I forgot the name, but I think it came from somebody in Cape Coast. So that's good news for people in the prisons, the prison staff, and of course the nation at large. This one says, good morning, Mr. President. I want you to look at the teachers who offered distance education to include them in when you are going to post them as regular students. Please, I want you to talk about it. I don't know whether the former president is ready to speak to it, but let me quickly run through other messages. He says, hi, please tell His Excellency that I am an NDC man and I come from Asenkregwa. Please ask His Excellency to remember Bodie Asenkregwa Road, because that road is very bad, and please tell JDM to remember us. Please, I am Justice. Any comment?
Bodie Asenkregwa Road. That's a very famous road.
It's always been in almost every budget
if you remember. Yeah, we tackled it. I remember we did it. I think it needs some...
Did it fall under the Cocoa Road project?
Yes, it was under the Cocoa Roads project. We tackled it and we put it under Cocoa Roads. I don't know what the current state is, but I'll be coming there. So when I come, I'll see what the state of the road is.
So that's an assurance. This one says, good morning, Mr. President. Ayiko for your good work. In regards to your free basic health care service, don't you believe if we commit to prevent care, it will also help a lot? Airam Adenta new site.
Yeah, preventive care is always the best. And it will be a part of the free primary health care. It will not only be curative care, it will also be preventive care. And so we're going to involve the public health nurses and all of them in their communities to be able to make sure that we create awareness about what causes diseases and all that, so that you can have a low rate of incidence of disease.
Okay, so let me move on to the next message. It says, hi, John Mahama, good morning. Please, we the youth of Central Region will never forgive you and the NDC if you don't rescue us from this corrupt government come December 7. It goes on to say, His Excellency John Mahama, good morning. Please, we the youth in the Central Region, okay, I think the message came 3 times.
Oh boy.
I don't know if you want to respond to the youth generally, because we have gone through some of the regions with you, and the new trend of activities on the ground with relation to political party activities seems to be the young men and women who have taken charge and seem to be in control. And their actions suggest that there's anger in the system.
Yeah, they realize that their destiny is involved here, and so they want to take their destiny into their hands. And so, I mean, if you go to the community, you find that it's the young people who are the activists, it's the young people who are getting involved in political activity. And it's a good thing, because I think that it's about their future. I made a statement that how we are governed affects, our children and our children's children. And I said that this election is an election of destiny. It's going to determine how the future of our children and our children's children will be. And so the young people should take an interest. I talked about the overborrowing that has taken place in the last 4 years. I mean, lumbering this country with a debt of 140 billion in 3.5 years. I mean, and there's really nothing to show for it. I mean, I keep challenging this government to show us what they've done with 140 billion over 3.5 years. I added to the debt 54 billion, but I can point to so many things that we did with 54 billion. After 140 billion, there's nothing to show. And when you ask, they say free SHS was not funded through debt. Free SHS has been funded from our oil revenues. So it's not part of the debt at all. And so 140 billion, what have you done with it, Nana Akufo-Addo? I keep asking and I never receive an answer.
Well, that's a direct question to the MPP. I hope they will respond. But the conversation in town is that the MPP is implementing your policies. You've raised it. I've seen a lot of commentary on social media. How do you react to this?
before I chose my running mate, they said I couldn't choose a running mate. And they went on and on. Where's your running mate? Where's your running mate? Finally, when I gave them this fine, brilliant lady, you know, they didn't know how to handle it. They started, you know, liking her to a witch, and I mean, saying all kinds of unsavory things about her. You know, that's how the MPP is. The same thing when we started with our manifesto, and we started consulting people. They said that we had no ideas for manifesto, and that's why we were going to the people for ideas. And then we come up with a brilliant manifesto, which we call the People's Manifesto, because a lot of the ideas came from meeting people. You remember, I went on a speak out tour, and I met ordinary people, traders, Okada riders, teachers, doctors, lawyers, all of them. We met them, and they all gave us what they thought their concerns were. Of course, not everything is captured here, but the most important ones we're taking and put in there. And so, where's your manifesto? Where's your manifesto? So finally, the People's Manifesto comes out. And they find that it has such important ideas that they cannot ignore it. And so they started implementing some of it. Cancel licensure exams. They've suspended licensure exams this year. They legalize and regulate Okada.
Now they are saying they are going to replace it with fresh vehicles for the young men, and then for the salvage vehicles, they are saying they've suspended it. How do you respond to that? Because that's where you're actually
with the salvage vehicles, what I'm telling the car dealers and the other people who will be affected is that it's not a matter of suspension. Parliament is returning in October. Government should go to Parliament and amend that Customs Act and take that clause out. You know, that is what they must do. It's not enough to suspend.
For clarity, what exactly does that mean?
If they say they've suspended and they've not amended the law, it means that in future they can implement the law again. And so what they should insist on is that the law should be amended and that particular clause taken out, so that it shows that it's not going to be implemented in the future. So it's not enough to suspend. It must be, the law must be amended and that clause taken out. And that is what the stakeholders must insist on.
So in short, just to paraphrase, I just want clarity, is that the MPP suggesting that, oh, we've suspended the law on the importation of salvage vehicles is not enough.
Yes.
It could be just an attempt to mislead the people. If they mean it, they should go to Parliament and change the law. That's what you are suggesting.
Exactly. It's a gimmick to say we've suspended implementation. Implementation was supposed to start on 1st November. And so if they say they've suspended it, it means we won't start on 1st November. But of course, then, so that you can vote for us, and then when we come, we'll continue the implementation. Because it's part of an agreement for the establishment of the automobile assembly plant. It was a concession to the automobile assembly plant. That is why they said they were going to ban salvage vehicles. And also impose, the more serious one, is they're going to impose a 35% import duty on used cars. And so it will put used cars out of the reach budgets of poor people. And everybody must be forced to buy the cars from the assembly plant. But the point I'm making is, why take such a step? You can use government's purchasing power, if you so wish, to support the assembly plant. Just make a law that every ministry and every government institution that wants to buy a vehicle should buy a VW from the VW assembly plant. And then leave the rest of the people in peace to buy whatever vehicle that they can afford, you know. And so they must insist that the law must be amended. Parliament is coming back in October. Government has the opportunity to do so if they have the intention to amend the act, and they should do it.
Well, we'll be taking a short commercial break. But before that, let's talk about licensure exams. I think we did a little about it. And now the reduced CST from 9%. I remember very well during the COVID times, the early days of the COVID times, you made this suggestion and even told the government to do other things. That reaction didn't come. I have received text messages suggesting that the implementation is starting. Now, the reduced CST by 9%, your specific commentary on or comment on this?
Well, you remember government increased the CST. And one of the suggestions I made during COVID was that they should reverse that increase. And that was because as a result of COVID, a lot of the educational institutions were closed down. And then during the lockdown, people could not carry on their normal work as they should. And so people were working from home and all that. And so there was a need for people to use data to be able to continue to learn and to be able to work. And so I suggested that they should reverse that increase in the CST. Of course, maybe because the suggestion came from me, they refused to honor it. But I mean, just recently they've announced a reduction in the CST, that's the tax on communication services, so that data becomes more affordable for people. A lot of people are still at home, learning from home, and they use that data to continue to access their lessons.
Okay, now we'll move on to another issue that has dominated public conversation. That is assembly members, your pledge to pay them. I want us to watch this brief video. When we come back, we'll speak briefly to this issue.
Honorable assembly members, we are the base or the foundation of local governance. And we have done sacrificial work for far too long. And the time has come for us to be rewarded. And we have seen it, and we are very sure and certain because he has done it before. If we remember, it was in the tenure of His Excellency, the late President, while he was the Vice President, that they introduced the motorbikes to the assembly members. And that has been a precedent, a very good one, of course. And for that matter, we receive and welcome this particular statement. And we want to tell His Excellency that before this dream of ours shall come to pass, he, inshallah, must be the President of the Republic of Ghana. And we want to assure him that we will not also sit. We will get up, move from house to house throughout our electoral areas and sell the good news to our people. Because when we are taking care of, it's going to also affect them directly or indirectly. Your Excellency, we thank you for putting us in your good books and considering to support us so that we can do a very good job as we are doing. In the Akan language, they say, Osiadeɛ yo. Ena yabe kan say ayebida because say the midi kan kaya no ɛyɛ ade a wayebida ɛnna me amigina ha yi motorbike a mete so no ɛyɛ wo penso ɛna udi kan de bae ɛna anuanom bi so eso mu enti watwa kwan pa ɛna ebinom so anya opportunity a ɔmo fa so.
So those were assembly members who met the former president here at Techiman. We know some assembly members have reacted from the Ashanti region, the Volta region, and I think I've heard about the Cape Coast, that's Central region. I'm not too sure about that anyway. We'll be taking a short break. When we come back, I want to hear the president's, the former president's message to Ghanaians as we prepare to wrap up this conversation.
The average human body mass should have at least 60% water for optimal performance in any physical or mental exercise. We can help you maintain it naturally. X Natural Mineral Water. Simply natural. The average human body mass should have at least 60% water for optimal performance in any physical or mental exercise. We can help you maintain it naturally. X Natural Mineral Water. Simply natural.
Welcome back. This is TVXYZ, Ways.tv on Facebook and YouTube. We had to buy time because of a little technical hitch, but I'm engaging the former president, John Mahama, and the conversation has been on his tour of the Bono East region. Now, former president, I just want to find out from you, as we wrap up, we'll listen to an assembly member who virtually paraphrased the excitement about your pledge. But your message to Ghanaians, what would you want Ghanaians to hear from you today as we speak?
Thank you, Eric, and good morning, my brothers and sisters. Tomorrow, Monday, 21st September, marks the birthday of Ghana's founder and our first president, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah was an iconic figure in the independence struggle and liberation of many African countries. Dr. Nkrumah was an inspiration to many countries around the world. And on this day, I want to salute him for his tireless and monumental contribution, not only to our nation's history, but to Africa's history. Finally, I come before you this morning with a triple invitation to be cautious, be bold, and to have hope. To be cautious when you read articles on social media, because unfortunately today we are living in the age of fake news. It is now too easy to take something false as the truth. There's sometimes a big difference between what somebody really did and what people are made to believe that he or she did. They say, for instance, that during my first term as president, I was a poor manager of our economy. This has been repeated so many times that people believe it. Some of you may have been made to believe this false story as a result of constant repetition. However, when you look at the data, things are completely different. In 2012, the size of the Ghanaian economy was $41.6 billion. In 2016, on my watch as president, it grew to $54.5 billion, a nominal change of some $13 billion in about 4 years. This year, 2020, on the watch of Akufo-Addo as president, Ghana's economy is projected to be somewhere around $66 billion, which means that the NPP government in 4 years changed the side of the economy by $11 billion. Note, in 4 years, by $13 billion under my watch and $11 billion under the NPP's watch. This is what the data says, and it is verifiable. You can examine the data for yourself. This government has meanwhile borrowed $140 billion, as against the about $54 to $56 billion that was borrowed during my presidency. The Akufo-Addo government has not got a track record, not in healthcare. We built hospitals, they have none. Not in tertiary education. We built universities, they have none. Not in the road sector. We built roads. They have declared a year of roads without roads. Not in fighting corruption. We fought corruption head on. President Akufo-Addo fights those who fight corruption in his government. The case of the Auditor General, Daniel Domelevo, is proof that corruption is fighting back, fighting the president. And this is why I invite you to be cautious. But I also invite you to be bold. Imagine, for instance, that today Ghana had a digital infrastructure that allows people to work easily from home, like they do in countries like South Korea or Denmark. The COVID-19 pandemic would have certainly had a lesser impact on our economy than it has done currently. Imagine a Ghana where all this is possible, where new types of services and new types of jobs allow people to live decent lives. Imagine a 21st century Ghana if you won't settle for good enough anymore. Instead, you'll be asking for change in the way our country is led. So I'm telling our people, have hope. Our manifesto, the People's Manifesto, pledges that the new NDC government will help 1 million young Ghanaians to become coders and programmers, to become the backbone of the new economy we will build together for the benefit of all our people, not a few people. With 1 million young coders and a solid digital infrastructure, we will bridge the gap between our country, Ghana, and the more advanced countries far sooner than you may think. And that's why we must have hope and believe this hope is real, because together with NDC, we've already delivered. And if we've delivered once before, we're able to deliver again. And so my brothers and sisters, be cautious, be bold, and have hope. I guarantee you that the next NDC government will provide you with a clear and honest chance to live a decent life. Be cautious, be bold, have hope, jobs and prosperity for all, and not a few people. Thank you, and good morning.
And I listened to this conversation which summarizes it all. It says, anytime the former president speaks, I feel like a sincere man trying to let Ghanaians see through his mind what he has for them. It's coming from one Alexander Enyeji, and he concludes by saying, please tell JM that God bless him, but tell him that he should open his eyes, and God willing, he should come to power in 2021. On this note, we will end the conversation with the former president. We are so grateful, sir, for your time. We will continue to follow you, and through our platforms on social media and on TVXYZ and several other media houses, Go TV, Volta One TV, Class FM in Accra, Power FM in Accra, Accra FM, and several others. We are also very grateful that you are partnering us to let this platform, let Ghanaians see what John Mahama and the NDC have to share ahead of the 2020 elections. I am Eric Ahianyo. Thanks so much for watching. Join us on our social media platform for other live updates as we move along. Good morning again.
John Mahama, a nation builder with a track record. Libon Medical Center, the breakwater of Takrani Harbor, Cape Coast Stadium, Kitasi Defense, Segleni Housing Project, University of Environment and Sustainable Development, Civil Aviation Training Academy, Masikejetia Market, What